Hello and welcome back to Couch Sprouts. My name is Anna Morris and I'm going to start off by doing you an affirmation from this book like we've done in the last video. So, bend down while holding the arms of a chair. Exhale breath completely and cave in the stomach and abdomen as far as possible, as near the backbone as possible. Then throw them out, bulging as them, while inhaling. Repeat 11 times. This exercise helps the peristaltic action of the stomach and removes its ailments. While the superiority of mental over physical cure is undeniable, nevertheless, these few physical exercises are included in this book for the benefit of those who desire to combine both methods. Right, okay. So today, what I would like to talk about is a little bit about drugs and our relationship um, to alcohol and cigarettes, and obviously with drugs overall being illegal. But yeah, your biggest killers are your cigarettes and your alcohol, which is it's legal in the UK. Obviously, I can't speak on every single country, but in the UK, these things are legal. And obviously, your drugs overall is illegal. They have different classes, but you know they are essentially illegal. So if you're caught with a certain amount of it, you can be taken to jail, for instance. So I'll start off by giving you a little bit of a history lesson about crack cocaine. And the reason why I know this is because, for some bizarre reason, when I was going to school, my teachers were under the impression that I was going to become either a teenage mother or a drug addict, or even worse, both. Obviously, they didn't know me very well, because I'll be honest with you, if you tell me something negative like that, then I'm going to do the complete opposite, and I'm going to go like completely out of my way to do the complete opposite. So the history of crack cocaine. Originally, they used to use it. I can't say originally, I don't know what was going on beforehand, but when I went away to do my homework on crack cocaine when I was in school, this is the information that I came across, and I thought it was very interesting. So they used to use it to make slaves work harder, because they realised that, obviously, as you can imagine, cocaine gives you a boost, if you wish. And one day, inevitably, the slaves fought back. And in their opinion, they felt like, well, it's the drugs that's creating the problem, rather than, you know, them trying to make humans, you know, do their dirty work for them. That didn't come into play at all. They decided to make it illegal for slaves and generally black people to take cocaine. However, if you was a white person with a certain amount of money around you, it was quite normal back in the days to be taking cocaine. So here's a fun fact. Sigmund Freud was a huge cokehead. So weirdly enough, I don't know how much you know about Sigmund Freud, but Sigmund Freud was a, what would you call him? He was, I suppose he had insight into psychology, I guess, and also they would believe that he had insight into psychology. However, one of his quite well-known theories, and I have to say theories like, you know, theories, because theories doesn't make it real, it's just a theory. However, moving on from that, he came out with the theory that we all ultimately fancy, as a young child, we ultimately fancy our parents. So as a female, I would have fancied my dad, apparently, and if I was a male, I would have fancied my mum, apparently. Um, Now, the number one issue there is he is coked out of his face, and we are still, till this day, taking on board what this man said. But worse, even worse, this is a time when it was an easy, you see, that theory played a huge part in children being blamed for things happening to them when, against their consent, and obviously at a certain age you can't give consent. But in the times that Sigmund Freud was, alive and coming out with this absolute, I could say, codswallop. I feel like as if it was a little bit more to do with keeping the young people accountable, I suppose, for something that wasn't actually their fault. So I would say bear that in mind, because that is literally, if you ever study psychology and come across Sigmund Freud, it's a good, it's interesting to know, because he will pop up a lot in the subject of psychology for obvious reasons. And like I say, he was, number one, he was on drugs, and number two, it was more about keeping children quiet, essentially, because as I think we can all agree, we have only kind of recently come into the realization that some things are wrong. Even in my lifetime, I'll be honest with you, things were happening and really went under the radar. Like, for instance, I will make a point of mentioning R. Kelly marrying Aaliyah. That was not so much that it was under the radar, but for some reason, no one really felt like as if it needed to be, I don't know, spoke on, if I'm honest with you. And then recently, obviously, I say recently, I mean the last couple of years, obviously he's gone to jail for some of the crimes that he's done, and it has now come to the light where, obviously he's married this young girl. Obviously, it just is unthinkable, it's disgusting. And he's not the only one. There was absolutely loads of known figures that married young people, including Elvis Presley. I mean, I can sit here all day and I can list off names of people that have not even just like had relationships, we've literally married people that were not, in their it's just, yeah, I couldn't imagine someone trying to marry my daughter in a year or two, because she's 14. I couldn't imagine it. I'd be devastated. I'd go absolutely mad. So yeah. But obviously, I suppose the point of this is because we're talking about the actual drug itself, and the history of it. So we know Sigmund Freud was, he was a huge, avid cokehead. But not only Sigmund Freud, so was like one of the most famous scientists, Albert Einstein. And I make a point of saying Albert Einstein because, in all fairness, we have him on a pedestal. To be fair, we have Sigmund Freud on a pedestal. We have a lot of people on a pedestal that aren't here today, but we've put them on a pedestal. A little bit You know, like when you think about it, in these times, your politicians would have been snorting the coke. Everybody essentially that had the money around them, they would have been snorting coke. But we've put them on a pedestal. And I mean, obviously, I mean, I don't want to go into the depths as to where other theories have come from, but even the theory of us coming from monkeys, um, there was a whole backstory to that, and it really has nothing to do with human evolution. It was more to do with what they wanted the majority to think, as opposed to the truth. So I just want us to bear that in mind when I am going on to say that, with that being said, I believe that all drugs, as long as cigarettes and alcohol is legal, I feel like all drugs might as well be legal as well. And the reason why I say that is because, as someone that was brought up around the drink, I was very aware of um, there like being this like shadow place, if you wish, in society that is tucked away, you know, for the few, but it's there. And that shadow society, it's not just alcoholics, it's just your drug addicts as well. And I suppose that that place is built from shame, because when we've legalized all of these things, it has kind of created a shameful connotation. It's created something where it's quite hard for people to just come out and say, yeah, can I get the help that I need? Because, you know, I quite like heroin or whatever the drug of choice is. So, and that's just always been the way I've thought, because I really do feel like as if you care so much as lawmakers about the people, then why are the things that are known to kill you at an alarming rate compared to most other drugs, why are they legal? Simply because you can make tax off of it? Well, if that's the case, then I'd say you can make tax off of every drug. If you know, if it's such a thing of, you know, we need to make money more than we need a healthy society. And I'm not a politician, and I'm not trying to be a politician, but it just doesn't make sense to me. And if there's one thing that I would like to think, if I'm voting someone to be, you know, the head of the UK for a period of time, I would like to think that they care. And I would like to think that they've given us room to believe that they care. However, I am sort of, I don't believe for a second that they care. And that's probably one of the reasons why I don't believe, especially because, like I say, I was a child at a time where I have no control, and I can see that there is this crippling mental illness, if you wish, that has basically taken over the household. And there seems to be, even though it's legal, it seems to be that once you've stepped over the line of either you're a drinker, you're a social drinker, or you're an alcoholic. Once you've stepped over the line of a social drinker and an alcoholic, which is a very, very thin line, very, very easy to miss, to be honest with you. You can step over that line and not even know you've stepped over it. It feels like as if it then does become this shadow place. It becomes a place where the only people that are accepting are the ones that are judged just harshly. And so that's probably why I've come to the conclusion that that I have done with it. Obviously, everybody's got their opinions, and that's absolutely fine, and I'd be more than happy to discuss. But this is where my opinion is literally coming from. Um, because I met a lot of people, a lot of children actually, whose parents were or parent was hooked on a drug, for instance, and it's very different when I was in the playground because everybody knew, oh, your mum's a drinker, but it's legal, so what can really come of that? And when I was growing up, if I'm honest with you, social services didn't really get involved like they probably would today. Um, so nothing really came of anything, really, to be honest with you. But even back then, I'd be very, very surprised if a kid went into the playground and said, "Oh, I watched my dad or whatever taking heroin." I'd be very surprised if that didn't end up getting to the school teachers and then eventually social services, and then that child would have got taken away. Um, Definitely nowadays, I think it's impossible to say that that wouldn't happen because I've known people to lose their kids just for smoking weed. So I'll be honest with you. I mean, maybe there was more to the thing than them just smoking weed, but um, yeah, maybe there was more to it. I don't know. But like I say, from my understanding, I've known people these days, literally, that they're not even, they wouldn't even be safe to, smoke a very light spliff in front of their children or around their children, and then that not have an implication. But when I was growing up, yeah, a lot seemed to get kind of brushed onto the carpet, and I'm not saying everything, but I mean this was a long time before Baby P, and we all know the implications that Baby P then had on the social services and the state in general. Because it kind of forced them to take a good look at, first of all, their job, I suppose. If they're supposed to protect children, then what even happened there? So yeah, there's that. So I do think that it should be either legal or we should be looking at taking cigarettes and alcohol completely off the shelves, and understanding that if we can argue that you can't take heroin, then I just don't think it makes any sense whatsoever to say that alcohol and cigarettes are legal, considering how many people it kills. And you know what? I haven't even mentioned vapes. Because vapes, it's even worse because we don't know the implication of vapes. And even more so, it seems like as if the person that has created the flavours and the design of these vapes have really got young people in mind, if I'm honest with you, because the colours are almost like a toy. I mean, even my 4-year-old would probably be quite intrigued. Ooh, what's that? So I find that quite worrying anyway, to be honest with you. And yeah, so I do think that, I don't know, it's just something really that people should genuinely sit with and ask themselves, at the time of voting, who are we really voting for? Are we voting for the same types of people that we've been voting for all along? They go to all the same universities. They've basically been born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and almost walked into lawmaking jobs anyway. So first of all, what do they really know about the world? Have they ever lived amongst in a place where this shadow is very, very it's everywhere. For instance, I was brought up in Tottenham, so I will say, I don't know if you've ever read the book Crack House, but I was brought up literally smack bang in the middle of where Crack House is based, and basically there's like a triangle Um, that was, and I don't know if it still is, but it was, they warned tourists to stay away from it. But yet here we are, growing up, walking to school, every day walking past cafes that also, sell crack. And if you're lucky, you might be able to buy a couple of spliffs, or in terms of weed, you could just literally anything you wanted, really, you could buy it. And we had teachers that would be on something, obviously. Yeah, drugs was just very, very prevalent in the area that I was brought up in. And yeah, so to be honest with you, it's something that um, I feel like it needs to be spoke about. And then obviously, like I say, I was brought up in an area like that, but not everybody is necessarily privy to all of this. Not everybody's even aware that you could even go to a kebab shop at the same time as score drugs. But yeah, it was quite normal. West Green Road was literally, we used to walk up and down it every single day. And yeah, there was literally every other shop must have been selling something or another. And obviously, the same road, there would be brothels as well. But again, like I say, I didn't know this when I was growing up. It wasn't actually until I read Crack House that I actually realised, wow, okay, so we were living smack bang in the middle of all of this, where this is happening. And to make it even more so, like to make it even more real to me, is the fact that they mentioned a raid that they done in it was in Tottenham, but it was an area called Broadwater Farm, where I believe it was a fireman, or it could have been a police officer. I can't remember, but I know that there was police and fire brigade there, and one of the two got their head chopped off because there was obviously loads of people was out and rioting. And yeah, and this was actually them trying to do a drug bust, but the area was so difficult to work, like to actually get around, that they already kind of knew going in that there was going to be an issue. So yeah, so they already knew that they were going to have issues going in there. So obviously, I'm assuming that that's why the fire brigade was there as well. But obviously, it didn't really help anything. A police officer or fireman, I believe it was a police officer, lost his life that day, and that was real to me, because even though I wasn't, I think I must have been really young, or I probably wasn't even born when that happened, but it was real to me because I remember people talking about it because they were there when it happened, and obviously them reading about it from the perspective of the police officer that's doing this, leading these raids. It was quite surreal. Um, so yeah. And like I say, it was absolutely rife. There was people getting shot. I actually remember in school, there was a boy that I used to know. In fact, actually, I believe he was part of the Sack Twins, actually. And he was actually just sat in a car minding his own business. I don't believe that he had anything really to do with the drug scene as such. But obviously, he must have been hanging around with someone, and I'm assuming sitting in their car. And I remember when he was shot and killed, I suppose just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it makes a lot of sense to me that, by having these drugs under the umbrella of illegal, under the umbrella of um, dirty, or whatever it is that people's opinions of it is, it is literally creating not only a it is creating a very, very unsafe space for people that are living around it. It's creating an unsafe space for the drug addicts, and it's creating an unsafe space for the drug dealers. To be honest with you, as mad as that might sound, I know that some people would probably say, "Well, I don't really care." Fair enough, maybe you don't, but um, the point is these drugs have been put on the streets in the first place, and I feel like we all kind of know that. Crack didn't just turn up on the streets of anywhere, come to think of it, by accident. It had to get shipped over, and someone had to allow that to happen. And is still allowing it to happen till this day. So someone somewhere is making a hell of a lot of money, but they're not getting any fingers pointed at them. The only people that have really been um, having the fingers pointed at them is your low-level drug dealers and your drug addicts, which I think is pretty problematic anyway, because what are you really going to do? You're never going to actually, the war on drugs is never, and I'm pretty sure that it's a deliberate act anyway, but it's never going to be dealt with if we're not actually able to get to the people that are putting the drugs on the street in the first place. But that won't happen for obvious reasons. And the other thing is as well is obviously we have a bad habit as society. We treat drug addicts and alcoholics the same as what we probably treat homeless people, if I'm honest with you. And I say homeless people because I think it's kind of an obvious that a lot of people, unless they've got some change in their pocket, they don't really want to look down. They don't really want to acknowledge the fact that there is a person there who needs something. And it would be easy to just turn around and say, I'm sorry, I haven't got anything, but when I come back round, I'll bring you a sandwich or whatever. Don't get me wrong, some people will sit with them. And some people just every time they see them, they'll just give them change or whatever. I am one of those people that will. I tend to. I'm not. I'm the kind of person where I actually feel like everyone's got a story. So I'll be honest with you. When I see the homeless people in town, there's regular ones that I see quite often, and when I see them, they might ask me, have you got a cigarette or whatever, and sometimes I'll just sit and have a chat with them. But overall, I'm aware that it's easier, if I'm honest with you, for people to just carry on with their day and not look where the homeless person is, or to try and ignore it by looking over there. Kind of treat it like one of those people that are standing in the middle of the street with a PDSA. Like literally, we don't want to look at you, we don't want to acknowledge you, we just want to keep walking so you don't really notice us. And that's how we treat this shadow section of society, so to speak. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to explore it. We don't want to hear the stories. We just point fingers and judge it. And I just want to put it out there that when we are judging people for being on drugs, I just want to put it out there that not everybody has even chosen this life. I'm not going to sit there and say, like some people haven't chosen to take heroin or whatever it is that they're taking. However, I am very, very aware, more so now than I was ever before, about what happens when someone is taken in for human trafficking, for instance. If they want to get a girl on the game, how do they go about doing that? This girl can be straight and narrow, never taken a drug in all of her life, and yet she can become a full-blown druggie, within 6 months, because they're basically force-fed it, and or like they might put the heroin in the needle and put it in their arm, and it's not within their control. Also, as well, people that have been that got hooked on something because they didn't know what they were smoking. They thought that they were smoking weed, and it turns out that it was spice, for instance. I mean, obviously now I'm talking about drugs that are a little bit more recent, that you see a lot more, of those people that are sort of falling over in the middle of town or whatever. But again, I would genuinely say try not to be too judgmental of that, because number one, we don't know the story from the beginning. We don't know why they've ended up taking that drug. And even if they've taken that drug because they had some trauma in their life, would we judge someone for having an eating disorder? You probably wouldn't. Um, Okay, saying that, some people probably would, because we do live in a really, really judgmental world. But would you judge someone for having any mental health issues? For instance, bipolar. You can't judge something that comes or transpires from trauma, because I feel like we all have trauma. At some point in our life, we're going to be traumatized by something. Um, don't get me wrong, obviously, if you're in the mindset to, I don't know, kind of conversate with yourself and say to yourself, my reaction is going to be the difference. It's going to be what matters in this situation. It's not really what's happened to me, it's my reaction to it. But again, like I say, we have this misconception that everybody thinks the same, but they don't. Even just me saying that right now, I mean, there's so many people that are not necessarily drug addicts, but they don't think like that. They get over it another way, or they get through it another way, or they don't get through it at all. Because, like I say, which I wanted to make a point of saying, we are addicted to many things. You take the televisions out of people's houses, the sugar out of their cupboards, the coffee, the tea, the obviously caffeine, whatever, all your energy drinks, your mobile phones, your cars, anything essentially that you don't realise but you have become reliant on. And then tell me that you don't understand, what it feels like to itch to do something. I don't know the ins and outs of taking hard drugs, because I've never taken hard drugs, but I am very, very aware of the fact that it's almost impossible for these people to come out and feel comfortable to get the help that they need in a world that is so nasty and so judgmental, and almost like their own don't stink, to be honest with you. And it's silly, because something, I'm going to put it out there, every day people eat, and obviously, and a lot of the time, a lot of the food that we're eating, particularly at the moment, not many people are making something from fresh. So a lot of your food is processed. So I'm going to put it out there, because I mean, that in itself is an addiction to crappy food. But I'm also going to make a point of saying that essentially what you're eating is no different to eating a tasty poo. If a tasty poo, and that sounds so disgusting, but that's what it is, because processed is literally the process of the food going, down into your stomach, doing what it needs to do, and then coming out the other end. And we're buying that in the frozen section or whatever. It's processed. There's nothing necessarily healthy about that. But yet, it's fair to say that, there's a lot of processed food getting bought. So, with that being said, just be mindful of, all the fingers that are pointing at you when you're pointing fingers at other people. And also as well, even if you might be one of these people that cook everything from scratch and does everything so no one can ever point fingers, I can promise you there's always going to be somebody pointing fingers. And so at some point in your life you will have to get to the stage where you've got to stop caring about what people think anyway, because people will always find something to judge. But like I say, when it comes to a, a shadow, if you wish, of people that are more often than not um, congregating with each other because of the judgment outside, um, and yet at the same time they are in some kind of pain. Something painful has got them to where they are that day. Um, I just think it's really, really sad that we're there. Um, in the same way, like I said in the last video, I think people should be able to come out, and get the help that they need, whether it's through communication, whether it's through getting the help through AA, or I'm not sure what the drug one's called, but there's another one for drugs. Um, and I just feel like we need to, I don't know, just be a little bit more mindful of, just because their journey doesn't look exactly the same as ours, it doesn't make their journey any less important. And actually, if I'm honest with you, in my experience, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm quite, I like writing. And I'll be honest with you, some of the most inspirational people that I've met have been addicted to either a substance or alcohol. Um, and I will also make a point of saying, I don't know from personal experience, because I've never been addicted to drugs, or to alcohol or any hard drugs. But I would say that I'm very aware of the fact, and this is from people that have come off of both, and their personal opinion of it. It was actually harder for them to come off of the drink than it was for them to come off of the heroin. And I think that we're under this misconception that heroin is the hardest thing to come off of. But I mean, coming from somebody who literally tried to come off of both of them, he said that it was a lot harder coming off of the drink. So just with that in itself, I mean, given the fact that, like I said, it's legal, and it's a very, very thin line between just social drinking and becoming an alcoholic. It just goes to show you that, we can be really, really judgmental of something that could actually end up affecting someone that you really, really care about dearly. And a lot of people do care about somebody that's got some type of addiction. And again, like I say, I mean, I think we all assume that the most important addictions, is your alcohol, your drugs, gambling. But you'd be very surprised how much people would kick up a fuss if they couldn't watch their daily dose of, I don't know, whatever it is that people watch on TV these days, or they couldn't sign into their favourite social media because the phones are all down. I'll be honest with you, I think people would start off and they would kick off a bit of a ruckus. Don't get me wrong, eventually, naturally, they would have no choice but to get on with life like what we all used to do. But we have become so interdependent on all of these things around us, and we should focus more on that than judging other people. And if not, then, to be honest with you, just try and make the changes, as an individual, to not be that person that is making somebody's life that's already hard enough. Them being in that situation is already, they've probably already had a journey and a half. Some of us couldn't even imagine the journey of some people. There's one person who she was a lovely woman. I'll be honest with you, and it's funny because when we first met her, um, to be fair with you, she used to be this known drunk on the estate that we would basically taunt her until she would start effing and blinding at us. I don't know why. Everybody seemed to find that so funny. We there was a dog called Pippi as well that we used to do that to. So it wasn't just humans. We did that too. But anyway, so yeah, we used to wind her up. But to be honest with you, it wasn't like because we didn't like her or anything. It's one of those really weird things that we used to do on that estate. I suppose we were bored. So, but once I actually got to know this woman, um, I learned a little bit about her story, and I'll be honest with you, I can fully understand why she ended up on the road that she was on. Because she started out as a beauty therapist. She owned her own business, and she had a successful husband. She had, I think, 2 kids. Proper, proper dream little life that she had. And then one day there was a car accident, and she was the only survivor. And so it was her way of dealing with it. And in the end, she ended up dying of cancer, which a lot of people that I'm aware of that was drinking when I was younger ended up dying of some form of cancer because of all the sugars that is in alcohol. So, and especially the alcohols that they were drinking at the time as well, because naturally, cheap and cheerful, once you've gotten to a certain point of drinking, cheap and cheerful is the way forward. So there was a lot of cider that was, quite cheap at the time, White Lightning and stuff like that. And obviously people was going for it because it was cheap and cheerful in a big bottle as well. So and you could share it, amongst your friends or whatever. So yeah, and I don't know, if they've put the prices up or anything like that in the last decade. But when I was growing up, I remember that this particular cider was quite a big. It was a huge killer, if I'm honest with you. So I would assume that they probably made some kind of changes to the pricing of it, because that was not really helping, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not saying that alcohol should be getting sold at all, but if you are going to sell it, just I would definitely say try not to make it too easy for somebody to essentially kill themselves. But then at the same time, these are leading to questions that we should be asking ourselves anyway. Are we definitely 100% sure that that isn't actually the ultimate game plan? Because they just keep putting the price up of cigarettes, but there's no talk of taking them off the shelves. They keep putting the price up on most of the alcohol, but there's no talk of taking it off the shelves. And so when I talk about legalizing alcohol, I mean, sorry, not alcohol, sorry, drugs, I can't help but, and I know a lot of people would definitely be like, what are you talking about? Like, we're just going to have a road full of, like, a world full of druggies. But I don't necessarily believe that, because I believe that, number one, it'd be more regulated. Number two, if you can just put the price up on everything as an excuse to try and get people to stop doing it as much, then what's the difference with hard drugs? You can just do the same. But it always takes me back to the flower power era. And I know that it sounds crazy, but because most people would probably, you know, think of something else when you think of flower power era. So I'm not going to pretend like as if, you know, everybody was all love and light just because we was in an era of hippies. But more often than not, people were high vibrational. People weren't, they weren't making themselves, I suppose, feel forced into what the system wanted them to do. And so essentially, there was a war, if you wish, on the whole flower power era. Because they wanted people to go to work and knuckle down and, you know, be good citizens. But people were vibrating really, really high back then. People were all love, and you know, you could sit down and look at the stars in the sky, and not really feel too, I don't know, you wouldn't have got judged for you know, sitting there smoking a spliff in the 1960s in any way, shape, or form. But like I say, I mean, obviously there was a lot going on in in that particular era of time. So I'm not going to completely gloss over all the other things that was going on. I'm not going to gloss over the fact that there was, you know, what was his name, Manson, Charles Manson, I believe. That was during Flower Power. So yeah, I'm not going to gloss over the fact that there was psychos are always going to exist. But my point is by kind of attacking the era, by illegalizing everything, and by saying to people, we need you to just go to work and just be a good citizen. Look at where we are today. A lot of people are very, very down and depressed. And so it's ironic, really, when you having this conversation, even talking about, you know, pointing fingers at people that are addicted to a substance, because essentially, again, like I say, if we spent a little bit more time looking at how we feel about where we are right now, and if we had any understanding of our vibrational frequency, a lot of people are not vibrating very high. Because they wake up before the sun's even come out. They, you know, get ready for work. They go to work, and obviously they might just about see a little bit of sun as they're walking into work, or driving into work. And then they leave work, and the sun's going down, so they're not really getting too much of that either. And so, if I'm honest with you, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. That is highly, highly depressing. And I remember realizing, I came to a point after 3 years of working in a bank. I absolutely hated it. I hated a number of things about it, to be honest with you. But there's so many things that I hated about it. But I realized that I hadn't laughed. You know, like when you really laugh and you cry with laughter, you like your stomach hurts with laughter. I was always like quite a happy-go person. I'll be honest with you, that was always my favourite thing, to be honest with you, was to find my people and to just laugh until my belly hurt. And I feel like I got to 3 years, and then I realised, wow, I haven't laughed. Like every laugh that I've ever done in the last 3 years has been a fake laugh, you know. Like we'd have customers in, and you know, like there was this one guy, and he used to always, he had an innuendo, but it was never funny. So I would just be like, yeah. But yeah, so it took me a while to realise, wow, I haven't even laughed. Because I'll be honest with you, it's subtle. You know, you get thrown into this world of work and, you know, being in an office all the time, but you don't even realise that, like, your the things that you actually really enjoy, like simple things, like a really good belly laugh, It's just completely, it's not there anymore. It's taken away from you. So I'll be honest with you, early 20s, I left that bank, and I've never, ever looked back and thought, okay, I want to work in another office, or it's just, it hasn't happened. Anything that I've done it knowing, um, I'm either going to enjoy this, and if I don't enjoy it, I'm leaving. I remember for a little while I was working in a bookies, and this particular manager, he used to try and get me on the weekends. Every weekend he would get me on. And even though I said to him, I goes, it's not making sense for me because I've got a daughter at home who I want to spend time with. So it feels like, I'm working the whole the days that she's not at school, and essentially I'm missing out on her. So, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not one of those people. I did not give birth to my child or my children for someone else to come along and bring them up just so that I can turn around and say, oh, I'm a good member of the society. No, I'm sorry. No, thank you. I think I would rather be a good mother to my children, regardless of what people think that that looks like. To me, um, it looks like I am there, essentially. Um, it's not like, oh yeah, I only see mum when she picks me up from school or drops me off. Other than that, she's at work. No, that's not for me. No judgment on people that, do, but it's not for me. So I basically told him to go and take a running jump because I feel like he'd done it to me 3 weeks in a row. And then this one particular week, he turned around and said, well, I'm going out. And I said, right, well, you're going to have to find cover because I'm not coming in. That's it. Like, I'm not coming in. I've given you your warning, that I'm not the walkover. And I'll be honest with you, he didn't really listen until it was too late. And then I remember the manager underneath him, she messaged me and she was really upset. She was like, I've got kids or a child, and that took away from me. Well, no offense or anything, but you're well within your power to tell him to get up off of his backside as the manager of that place to go and cover the shift. The fact of the matter is he wants to go clubbing, you want to look after your child. You've got to ask yourself, which of the two is more important? It's not even a second thought for me. It's not important to me. It's not important. At the end of the day, it's not even my business. Whoever's business it is probably tanning it up in Jamaica somewhere. So I don't care personally. And I will never, I don't feel like as if I will ever be apologetic about having that kind of attitude, because the fact of the matter is I just refuse to allow myself to ever find myself in that spot again 3 years into a job where I'm realizing I am so depressed in this place that I haven't even laughed properly. I mean, even at home, even on the holidays, that you might take, no, because the anticipation of going back to that crappy office with those crappy people, and I will say that, was just too much. So one of the best jobs that I ever had turned out to be something that I was basically a part owner with my dad and a few other people. And the reason why that was one of the best jobs that I ever had is not because, they were, it was like, I can do what I want type of thing. No, the reason why I enjoyed that job so much is because I laughed. I actually laughed, and every single shift I done, I would absolutely piss myself. It was the best job, the best job. I'm not going to say exactly where it was. Those of you who know me, but I'll tell you one story that even when I think about it now, it still makes me giggle. I was behind the bar, and I'd gone to get something out of out of the dishwasher, and the dishwasher was literally just underneath me. So I bent down to get the glass out of the dishwasher, and the girl that was standing in front of me with another customer, she had a glass of wine in front of her, and obviously she's leaned in and the wine has fallen over, but I am literally just behind the bar. So I've stood up, obviously slowly, and there's red wine just like poured down my head. It was so funny. But that's what life is about. If you ask me, life is for living. It's not for you know, being depressed, and especially just so that someone else can turn around and say, oh, my business is dead successful at the end of the year, and talk about all the billions of pounds that they're making and you're lucky to make £12 an hour. No. Not for me. And obviously what comes to my mind is because obviously depression is a huge thing in the UK right now, and I'm assuming it's probably a huge thing in America and other places too, but it's an assumption, I don't know. But in the UK it's huge, and one of my things to that is when you know that a rose is depressed, you don't ask the rose to make changes around itself. You simply move the rose out of the environment that's making it depressed, and you move it to an environment that is less depressing so that that rose can survive. Now, when you're talking about, I don't know, a country full of people that keep going back to the same place that depresses them, then there's something fundamentally, there's got to be something more than just moving from this place to that place, because I'm assuming these businesses are always going to be looking for more people to depress, essentially, as bad as that might sound, but it's true, because it's not like if they're trying to make these jobs you know, a fun environment for people to actually want to work in. And unless they do, then the only other thing that I can say is we're in a situation right now where it's a bunch of depressed roses, and we're basically being run by several daffodils. So how about the roses just stop voting for the daffodils? Essentially, send them packing. But that's just my analogy of it. I'm not sure if that makes any sense to anybody, but that's just one of my aneurysms. So yeah, so that's me for the day anyway. I hope you like that, and please feel free to comment. If you like it, then like, share, subscribe, do whatever you gotta do, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.